Hello. Welcome to Afterthoughts. It is good to be here with you guys online. I'm Andrew, and
I'm Mark.
And we are here together. Pastor Delton and Don are on vacation for the next couple weeks, so we get to do this tonight. It is very exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
It is very
Glad
awesome.
I can be here.
Hello, Kelly. Hello, BJ. Hello, Marcy. It is good to see you guys online. I'm trying to see. Let's see. What are we going to talk about?
I have a question.
You have a question.
You want to do the announcements first, or
let's do the questions first.
Okay.
So you had a great question today.
I have a question for you, Andrew, and for everybody out there. So, is there any project or any activity that you're involved in right now that's really exciting? Something that's got you excited, that you're eager to be working on? People have a lot more time. Some people do during this pandemic time. So, Andrew, you got anything that you're working on? Any project that you've been working on at home?
I do have a project. So for my birthday in August, my dad gave me a sourdough starter kit. And so finally, a month or so later, I am getting that going. I started it maybe Monday, and then you're supposed to do all these things. I started it Monday. Tuesday, you have to ferment it for 24 hours. And I opened the box, and it just smelt disgusting. It smelted. It smelled like rotten socks, almost.
Woo.
And so I'm following these instructions in the booklet that he gave me to kind of wash it and fix it. And so it takes forever. But I'm kind of excited because it seems like maybe now we're going on the right track. So my project right now is I am starting my sourdough cultures. And this is an interesting sourdough culture because this guy, Ed Wood, he goes all over the world collecting these sourdough cultures. And this one is from Giza, where the pyramids are. And
Wow.
he found it, and he says it's probably close to 5,000 years old, because it'll just keep, sourdough cycle, just keep cycling. So it might be about 5,000 years old. So
That's an interesting one to work on.
It is.
You've always got something to do with food, I've noticed.
I do.
There's a theme. So
I like cooking a lot.
yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would love for people to kind of chime in and tell us about what they're working on. While you're doing that, mine is not anywhere near as creative as yours, Andrew. I am just after the Yard of the Year award. I'm going to skip Yard of the Month and go right to the year. Since we've lived in our house for 20 years, and the yard has received very little attention in those. I'm trying to make up for it all in the last 7 or 8 months. So that's mine. I don't know if anybody else is.
So what makes a yard of the year the yard of the year?
Well, first of all, there's this stuff called grass.
Okay.
You should have grass in your yard. So we had a collection of all sorts of weeds, and so now we're putting in St. Augustine grass, nothing too creative, and letting it do its thing and fill in all the gaps. And my wife's working on the flower beds and trying to do some gardening, and she's got a few green beans and something. We're learning it's really hard. Gardening in Texas is a whole different thing than having a vegetable garden in the Midwest.
Yes.
So I'm not very good at that, but my wife's giving it a try. So I'm mostly on the yard and the grass and all that, and she's on the flower beds.
So do you get like a ruler and measure each one?
I'm not to that point yet. No, we're not. We're just still eliminating weeds.
Gotcha.
I'm big time on the pulling weeds. So
awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah. So maybe should we do some announcements while do you have some?
The question today is, what is a project that you have going on in your life that's exciting? Not one of those annoying projects that we don't want to do, but a fun, exciting project that you get up in the morning to do.
You get excited about it, right?
But we do have announcements, a couple of them. The first one is save a seat for worship this weekend.
Woo!
If you haven't already and you'd like to save a seat, go to POG.church. There will be a button there that you can click to save a seat for worship this Sunday.
All right.
That's the first one. The second one is Alpha Online. Would you like to take this one?
I would love to take this
Yes.
one, Andrew. You know that I do. So, yes, this is Alpha is off to a great start. I know you guys talked about it a little bit on Sunday in the pre-service live. We are at week 2. Attendance has been really good. Both of we have a group meeting on Sunday nights and a different group meeting on Tuesday nights. And both of those groups have met twice now, and their attendance has been great. But at Point of Grace, our tradition is that you can join Alpha anytime in the first 3 weeks of the course. So if there's someone out there that has never experienced Alpha, or you know of someone that you've been trying to get to invite to Alpha, or you haven't invited them yet, but you want to, yes, you can do that. The registration is still out there at POG.church on the website. And we have a little bit more room on Sunday nights than on Tuesday nights. But yes, it's a possibility, and encourage you to consider that if you're so moved to do that. If not, then we will certainly be having alphas that are going to start in the new year. So
Awesome.
Yep.
That's exciting.
yes, it is.
Yeah, so Sunday night, Alpha has a little bit more room, but
Correct.
register online at POG.church/Alpha.
That's right.
A couple other announcements. Children's ministry volunteers, if you are, there's a big need right now for children's ministry volunteers, and if that's something that you're interested in, email Michelle at POG.church to get plugged in with that and contact her. Also, media production. We have a whole media production team now,
Woo!
and there's lots of things, and you can email Dawn at POG.church, I think is the email that we've been giving. Even though she's on vacation, she can come back to lots of people wanting to be a part of the media production team.
She'd be very happy.
That would be a very big gift. So,
Yeah.
children's ministry, Michelle at POG.church, and media production team, Dawn at POG.church.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, we started a new series this week. It's a very exciting series for me. We're talking about, the title of the series is Jesus, Can I Thrive in My Anxious World? And I've loved it. So this is new for me. Me and Pastor Delton have been planning this series together, which is kind of exciting. It's pretty cool to see behind the scenes and what goes into thinking through a series. And he's so good at preaching and like just diving deep into Scripture that it's fun for me to be able to watch that process on the inside that probably not a lot of people get to see, of just how do you think through this? So it's been really, really fun for me. I love it. And I think it's a very applicable series for right now.
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yes.
Yeah, but I remember Delton says he likens it unto giving birth every week.
Yeah.
But so this next week you'll be giving birth. But anyway, we don't want to diminish what women go through. But so Andrew, I'm just curious, why do you think that this whole idea of anxiety and in an anxious world, why do you think that's a great topic for the time in which we find ourselves?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting, one, because we all have a lot of input right now on social media. We're at a time in human history where we are connected more than we've ever been connected to things that we like and also things that we don't necessarily like. We see a lot of we're bombarded constantly with notifications and pop-ups and feeds on this and feeds on that. And actually there was a Netflix movie that came out called The Social Dilemma. Rachel watched all of it, I think. I watched parts of it when she had it on. I was kind of doing stuff and was listening to it. But one of the quotes from that movie that Rachel reminded me of was, we were never... and so let me just back up a little bit. The premise of this movie is all these people that helped put together Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, the people that built the algorithms and helped build the websites, they're talking about what this problem that we have with social media and how it's affecting our society and all sorts of stuff. And towards the end of the movie, the quote is, "We were never designed to handle the problems, all the input that we have." And so we hear about something bad that happens in China, or you hear about something bad that happens in Africa, and like we don't know what to do with that. There's an emotional response that it triggers in us because we're hearing about these tragedies in the world. And so it was very interesting in the Social Dilemma movie that they said that, because the Christian world has been saying this, I've heard it for a couple years now, that we have all these inputs that we just don't really know that we are emotionally attached to. But so we have lots of inputs.
Yeah.
And it causes a lot of anxious feelings. I've noticed in myself it does. And I've seen in a lot of people that I'm close to that it creates a lot of it. So I think it's a really good topic for the time of how can Jesus help us in our anxious world? Can we thrive in it?
Yeah.
Not just survive.
Well, thanks for breaking that down for us. And you have such a great perspective because you were here on Sunday and you have an idea of what's going to be, what Delton's preaching on this coming Sunday, and then the following.
I get to preach.
Yeah,
on the 18th.
Yeah, so mark your calendars for that.
I do understand more about the giving birth. We'll never give birth, but it's probably not the same. But the feeling of laboring over something and then just like, where is the point? Where is it going? It's just a new feeling for me.
Well, as I've told you, I'm so thankful you're here and that you're doing this, and I do commit to praying for you every day.
Thank you.
For that. I'm looking forward to it.
I need it, yeah. I am too.
One thing we talked about as we were getting ready is that clip that you guys showed on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so we thought it would be a good idea to show it again, but maybe you can set us up for that, Andrew.
Yeah, so we have this clip that we showed at Sunday, and it's a conversation with me, Pastor Delton, and Jim Oddie, who's a licensed professional counselor friend and pastor of Delton's. And we wanted to get information to stay grounded in how anxiety works and what that's like from a professional, a licensed professional counselor. And so this clip is about 3 minutes of that conversation that I found really helpful. We found really helpful. So if we could play that'd be great.
So the deal with anxiety is that when the brain and the body have a mind of their own, and even though you want the anxious or negative thoughts to stop, you can't stop them. So the kind of rule of thumb with this is that's why depression and anxiety go together, is because when you're at the 7, if you are there habitually, okay, or perpetually, which I think is happening more and more now because where's the reprieve? Where do we get the refuge? Or we don't practice the refuge enough, okay?
Yeah, normal has become a 5 or a 6, right? And instead of
your base becomes a 5. See, ideally, we want to be able, and God has created our bodies in such a way that we can operate at our optimum. If at night we can get back down to a 2 or a 3. Because what that does is allows the body and the brain, basically the brain can stop thinking and the body can recover from the day that you already had, do a reset, and then get ready for the next day, whatever the stressors are. So see, that's the way that God created the body, but it was designed so that we can sleep at night and truly get recuperative sleep. Well, the only way to do that is if you can get down to a 2 or a 3. Well, ever since March, or some people say February, but March for sure, that 2 or 3 has become a 5. And it's not going down, it's moving up. So So it could well be that the 5 in let's say April, now that we're coming into October, that 5 maybe is at a 6. Well, see, what that says is if you're already hanging around at a 6,
there's no margin.
Then it isn't going to take a whole lot to go to a 9, and then you come back down from your 9 and you're only at a 6. See, so that's part of the fatigue I think that people are experiencing. So the pervasiveness of the anxious thoughts and the intrusiveness of it is what tells you if someone's having a lot of anxiety in their life, and they are unable to make that correction because the body and the brain have a mind of their own. That's kind of the classic definition of anxiety. And depression is just the opposite, in the sense that the person goes into doomsday thinking, kind of uber negative, and they get stuck there and they can't get out of it. Then that would be depression at a 7.
So, interesting clip. Any reactions from you, just to get us started?
Yeah, I think he talked about it in this, but I mean, or maybe it was in a discussion we had. I think maybe he asked that question, where's your 5? What does 5 look like for you? And I remember when I don't know if it was in staff meeting or when we first watched this clip, when I saw that, it really hit me. I was like, yeah, what does 5 look like in my life? And I didn't really come up with an answer.
Yeah.
What it does look like, or what it should look like.
Mm-hmm. It's I think it's a good question to ask, even if we can't find the answer, because it at least gets us thinking about what's a 5. And I love the scale analogy. I know it's probably an imperfect analogy. It probably doesn't fit everyone at all times in every way. But I did think it was a cool way to think about recuperative rest and where we're hanging out more now with the 5. And then probably we're hanging out more in the 5, 6, 7 range than we used to be. And we're never really getting back down to a restorative 2 or 3. We might get to a 4 at night, but not a. Mm-hmm. So I love finding what's your 5, asking that question. And I loved that. There's another quote in here from the sermon. It says, I cannot depend on my anxious world becoming unanxious enough for me to thrive. And we were talking about that earlier as a very interesting, thought-provoking quote.
Yes. I thought about it in terms of my prayer life. If my prayers sound like prayers that are designed to ask God to change my, to do that, what it says, would change my anxious world to an unanxious world by taking things away, taking problems away, changing situations, giving me things that I think I need, mm-hmm. and all of that. If that's what my prayers sound like, instead of prayers that say, recognizing, Lord, I'm going through a challenging period, maybe I'm without a job, or getting ready to step into a new job, or whatever it is, if my prayers don't sound like, Lord, as I'm going through this, will you walk with me? Will you lead me? Will you guide me? Because I think what the quote is saying is like, there's no way, we can never take enough of those the things that bring anxiety into our world. Even if we take the top 5 off, another 5 will take their place.
Yeah.
And you'll never get to a point that is not the meaningful life that Christ intends. He never says, if you trust me, I will eliminate all sources of anxiety in your life.
Yeah. Thinking about that quote and what you were saying made me just think about what does it mean to thrive and not just survive. And it was because it's definitely not accomplishing things. I think that's where I go to. If I'm thriving, that means I'm getting a lot of stuff done. And thriving, I don't think means that we're getting more stuff done, because I think we all know you can survive and accomplish a lot, and you can just be surviving and not thriving. Mm-hmm. And so it just made me think, like, what is thriving in an anxious world? What does that even mean? What are we asking God to? Because you're right about we'll never be able to take away enough stuff to have an unanxious world. And even in Scripture, if you look at Genesis and this perfect world that God created, Adam and Eve had stuff to do. There were things that they needed to do in the garden. I mean, he asked Adam to name all of the animals, and there's tons of animals. Mm-hmm. And that must have taken him weeks to do. It probably was not a short thing, but so the difference is not accomplishing things. And so what I've thought, I'll get your thoughts then, if anybody wants to comment on this, what they think. But I thought the difference was thriving is different because you have joy and peace. And when you're just surviving, the joy and the peace are not gone. So I'm going to throw that out there. If anybody wants to comment and let me know what you think about what the difference between thriving and surviving is, comment that below. And I don't know, any reactions that you have to that?
I think it's a really important, another thing to be thinking about, because here we are, I always just go to March 15th. For some reason, that's the date that sticks in my mind, when things really got bad here in Texas. And so we've been into this many, many months, and I want to thrive through that. I don't want 2020 to just be this black mark where I just go like, oh, 2020, that was a terrible year. I don't even want to think about it anymore. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's not, I'm not going to name the name of the chain, but I just saw on some advertisement that it says, where doers do more, or we help doers do more. Yeah. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a doer, and this chain is going to help me accomplish even more. But that is not, accomplishment is not equivalent to thriving. Right. It's like you said, it's the way in which I live my life that defines whether or not I'm thriving. Where is the joy? Where is the peace? And then, as we're talking about tonight's topic, am I living a life where people would say, that person does not seem consumed by anxiety. Mm-hmm. I don't see him get anxious very often. That's the kind of life that, I think that's a mark of a life that's, of a person that's thriving.
Yeah. I think that the whole idea of accomplishment, and I like doers do more, that's such a thing in our culture. That's just culturally what if you are doing more, you are worth it. You are worth your space. Yeah. So.
And I think that's one of the things that I'm wondering if that's one of the messages that God has for us in the middle of this is, He has certainly caused us to slow down. Mm-hmm. The pace of life has taken a dramatic turn, and I think that that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. So. Another thought that we were talking about earlier was, so the theme verse for this, if I could just read it, it says, this is Matthew 11. Verses 28 to 30, it says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This is Jesus talking. "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And so Delton talked about in the sermon, Jesus and his yoke. And a yoke is a way that people back then, we think, would have been a way for them to carry the loads of life. So he had that thing that everybody does where you carry all your groceries all at the same time. You try to do your one load of groceries all the way. And I would like to one-up Delton and say that I try to do this, but I live in an apartment and I have 3 flights of stairs that I need to get up.
Oh.
So I try to do all the groceries in one trip, 3 flights of stairs.
Oh, boy.
So
You're highly motivated.
highly motivated to carry the grocery load up 3 flights of stairs. But it's easier if you have the bags than it is just trying to carry these things individually. And he talked about that experience we all have where we go to the grocery store and you forget your reusable bags and they won't give you bags. You have to pay for them. And so you're trying to carry, you have your Eggos on the bottom and then you have your milk on the top. You have your boxes on the bottom so you can kind of balance your apple on the top and try not to get it to fall off. But then he talked about a yoke is a way of carrying the load of life. And we all have loads of life. And Jesus has a way to carry the loads of life. And I really liked that phrase, loads of life, because I might hear the word anxiety and think, well, I might feel anxious, but I don't, if that makes, I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't always have anxious thoughts.
Yeah, maybe some people would say, well, I've never received a diagnosis where I have a problem or a challenge with anxiety, so that doesn't apply to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the loads of life makes it kind of levels the playing field and saying, yeah, we all have those. And
Yeah.
when you were talking about the yoke, I had written this one down about the idea that Jesus doesn't remove those, just take them away from us, those loads of life, but he gives us equipment for carrying a load.
Yeah.
That's what the yoke is. It's we've got all this equipment now to help us through life.
It makes me think of like backpacking backpacks. And like, I remember going through the airport in one, when I was traveling last year in Denmark when we used to be able to do that. And we were in the immigration line, and I had this backpack on that it was pretty good, but like when you're in the immigration line, you were in there so long, and my backpack was like pulling me backwards, and I couldn't wear it. My shoulders were going numb, and all these things. And it was good for a little bit of time, but not for everything. And so it made me think of like a really good backpacking backpack that like is fitted to your body. It helps you carry things for a long time, and like you can just go. And how much better that is than like one of those little string backpacks, that cuts into your arms or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
As you were talking, it reminds me of a message way back in the day.
back.
That maybe some old-time Point of Grace people will remember, where this is before we even were in this worship center. That's
Really?
how long it was. More than 10 years ago. And I believe what Delton did, we were worshiping in Ridgeview Middle School in Round Rock, and he had some pieces of luggage, and those were the loads of life. And then he was running through the worship center, as he's prone to do, wheeling all of these various bags and suitcases and things like that. And it was I still remember it today. So that was an example of us trying to kind of do that on our own without maybe having the right equipment, not using the equipment that God can provide to us for those loads of life.
I think it's a really good. I think thinking about what are the loads that I have in my life, and how can Jesus help me carry them, is a great exercise in just processing our life, and how does Jesus actually have help me with this, a solution maybe. And there's another quote in here that says Jesus offers himself and his way, not just a list of do this, do that, do this, do that, but himself with it.
Yeah. And the idea, again, I'm starting to think about, this is a little bit off topic, but the thinking about how many times I think Christians are conditioned to be thinking about like, well, I believe, Jesus has a better way for my life. Someday, when I die, I'm going to go to heaven, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to be in Jesus' presence for all eternity. But when what you're talking about is, when Jesus offers himself and his way of carrying the loads of life, that's available to me today.
Yes.
He can. Well, we were just talking about something. Anyway, that you're kind of dealing with right now, and Jesus, I think, is saying, there is a way that I can help you. I'm available for you, Andrew, to carry that load, and you don't. Like I had written down here, each of us has a way of carrying life's loads. And I think what he meant by that is just saying, like, that's not necessarily a good, we all have our way of getting through life, negotiating life. Again, that's difference between surviving and thriving. We all have a way of surviving. We have that survival mode. And Jesus is saying, yeah, but I've got a much better way to carry those loads.
Yeah. I drew a little picture in my notes because in processing the message series, me and Delton were talking about how a lot of times we can feel this big, and our loads can just feel so much bigger, and how helpful that is to have Jesus and his way of carrying the loads of life when I feel this big and my loads are this big. And if I've got 700, 70 trips of groceries to bring in, it's it's very helpful to have someone else do it with me.
Yes.
So having Jesus there helping you carry the loads of life and his way of doing it is very helpful.
I also wrote down, in that, right after the second place where I know that scripture verse was repeated again. Come to me, all you who weary and are burdened. He said something about, again, it's that theme, and I think we see it so often in society. But Delton's point was, an easy life is a myth.
Oh, yeah.
And, you watch television enough and all these products, it's like, if you just drive this car or have this job or whatever, or live in this neighborhood, you will have an easy life. And he said, no, it's a myth. In fact, going a step farther, I think he said life is hard. Yeah. And I think there's nothing wrong with just saying that.
Yeah.
And especially in 2020, but Jesus never promised an easy life.
Yeah. So I was listening to a sermon today from a really great preacher, Tim Keller.
Okay. He wrote that book. He's the one that wrote that book about prayer.
Yeah.
That you like. Or no, is that
the Psalms, the Psalm devotion that I like.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, he's wrote a ton of books that I like. But he was talking about how when you're a Christian, and I'm gonna mess this up in my remembering of this, so you're gonna have to show me lots of grace because I'm gonna get this wrong. But
you got it.
He said when you're a Christian, there's lots of enemies that are trying to, you have Satan trying to mess you up, you got the world, and then you got your own sinful nature that are trying to mess you up. And so of course you have all these, of course your life's not going to be easy. You have all these things that are trying to make it not easy. And he said Satan can't take away your salvation when you're a Christian. He can't do that. He has no power there.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But what he can do is try to make your life miserable by throwing all these things away. Maybe he can't do that. This is, again, me butchering what he's saying. But it was a thought-provoking part of the sermon of like, oh. So, and then he was talking about expectations and how, maybe we expect too easy of a life. And when we look at the reality, life is not, Jesus never promised that it would be easy.
Yeah. I mean, we know that our salvation is secure.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus secured it for us on the cross and in the empty tomb. Yet, what Jesus says, in this life you will have troubles.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many places in the New Testament where Jesus says this,
mm-hmm.
or the one about, remember that if the world hates you, the world hated me first.
Right.
So of course, if they hate me, they're going to hate you also.
Mm-hmm.
And so walking into life thinking that it's going to be easy is setting yourself up, I think, for a lot of anxiety, because you're going to wonder, like, why is this so hard? I didn't know it was going to be this way.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Why is maybe this is not a good way to put it, but why is God not coming through for me now?
Mm-hmm.
If I have this hard stuff, I think that's really deep.
I like the Mark 6 one. That's towards the end there.
Yeah.
Come with me by ourselves to a quiet place and get some rest.
Uh-huh.
Mark 6. And again, like what you were saying earlier about the why this is a great topic for this, the way that we've been bombarded with so much information that we were never designed to be able to process or handle. It's the same thing about, it's increasingly more and more difficult, I think, to find a quiet place.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be so intentional, and so it's not only it's the time of the day and then a place, and a lot of people are kind of trapped at home, and so it's like, one person's working in this office or this bedroom and one's someplace else, and you're trying to find a place where you can, be alone with God.
Yeah. There was just a comment on our stream that said, Dale commented this great song, In the Garden, an old hymn, and the words, I come in the garden alone, and he walks with me, he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share, we tarry there, none has ever known.
Yeah.
And that's a great, I used to play that song with a good friend of mine, Chris, and I used to play mandolin on it, and that was always fun. But retreating with Jesus is very hard to do, because a lot of us have our phones or our Bibles on our phone. And so I'm reading a scripture verse on my phone, or I'm trying to watch a devotional video or something, and I get a notification. I'm like, ooh, I gotta check that. Ooh, I gotta check that. Ooh, I gotta check that. And I even tried, I think I mentioned it last week, I tried to set up some limits on my phone.
Because you have an app, did you have an app for that or something like that?
Yeah, it's like it's like a downtime thing where you can set, and even that doesn't always work, because there's a button you can click, like, give me 10 more minutes. And so you can just keep clicking 10 more minutes for 2 hours. And then also, it's interesting because there are times where I set a downtime, and then it's like, oh, I actually really do need to this is actually an important call that I need to do, and it's not letting me do it. So you turn it off, and then it resets itself. It's all confusing. So it's not the silver bullet I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
It is a hard world to navigate in quiet.
Well, maybe some people have ideas on that.
Yeah.
Like the idea of techniques or things that somebody might be aware of a different app or something that they like a practice or a routine. I mean, I know you were even talking about bedtime, and how to navigate that, and what do you do with, like, what happened with you, like, what do you do when someone presents something to you that has to be dealt with at 10 o'clock at night, how good are we at saying, you know what, I was talking to somebody and they just said, I just realized I do not have the bandwidth to deal with this tonight. I'm going to have to tell this individual that I'm going to have to get back to them tomorrow and pray that they'll have grace for me on that.
Yeah. Heather just commented, turn your phone on airplane mode and download the Bible app when you... So you can, apparently, this is a great thought of you can turn your phone off of the internet so it won't get anything, but you can have your Bible app downloaded so you can still do, and you won't get any notifications.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a good solution.
That is a good solution.
And that's not necessarily terribly high tech.
That's not even high. Yeah, you could. Anybody can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Wild at Heart app.
Yes. Pause.
There's the Pause app, but then they have just the regular Wild at Heart app.
Oh, okay.
And they have, John Eldridge has like the daily prayer.
Yes, all
and
the
Delton
prayers.
talks about that a lot. He really likes that, and I've tried it a few times, and I really like it. And so I actually use that when I'm driving. I'll plug my phone into my car, and it's already on car mode, so I don't get notifications. But then I play the prayer, and it's about the exact amount of time that it takes me to get here.
That's great. Yeah, I'm a fan of that app for the podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm pretty faithful about every week listening, but I mean there are a lot of good resources that he has available there, and I know that's listed here on the notes. The book Get Your Life Back.
Yeah, that's a good book.
I think that has a lot to do. Some of the things we've been talking about, it feeds into this, or this feeds into that. The idea of taking a break from technology, working on your transitions. I'm about halfway through that book, and it's a really great resource.
Yeah, there's another one on here, Restoration Year. We've referenced it a bunch. It's a devotional, everyday devotional that I have found really helpful to just, that helps me get in the zone, get some Jesus in my day.
That's awesome.
So we have one more minute. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, Restoration Year, and that's our theme this year.
That is our
Restoration.
Theme. Isn't that?
I've almost forgot. I know last year was consecrated. This year is restoration. And boy, what a doozy of a year it's been.
It is funny to think for the year to have the theme restoration. We've had a lot of what feel like they're not restorative, but I think they might be.
Yeah, lots of change.
Lots of change.
Lots of change that has been forced upon us. And God willing, it's good stuff. But
yeah.
Now I would just say I'm excited for the topic, the message series that Delton has planned out, and I'm really excited about your participation.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this coming Sunday, and for the one beyond to kind of dive more deeply into this.
Yeah, me too. So don't forget to register to save a seat.
Yep.
If it's not too late to sign up for Alpha.
Woo!
Sunday evening, if that works for you, has more spots open.
Correct.
And if you want to be a part of the media production team or children's ministry, you can email Don at POG.church or Michelle at POG.church, respectively. Awesome. Thanks, guys, so much for a great evening. See you next week.
Thanks, everyone.